What's going on? It's Justeeni here. This is part 2. Here's some important terms if you need to know any of them. Pause the video if you need to, and let's get right into it. Starting off with Kickoo. It's a turn 0 tribe, so you want to level up your capital on turn 0. And with this sort of map, you're likely wanting to get in the water early, so you want to train a warrior on turn 1, and then get a port on turn 2. From there, you have enough stars to likely upgrade your second city to level 3. And then from there, you can decide to either make another port or train up to 2 warriors. And then with this opening, we'll see kind of another watery spawn, but what if you don't find your second city right away? So we miss our second city here, but we can still make a port on turn 2. It's going to help us explore. Then on turn 3, we can consider training a warrior. It's optional, but in this case, it's pretty nice. And then on turn 4, we can capture a city, and we can develop our economy some more. And now, what if we can't really go for ports because our second city doesn't have any fish? Well, we can still train a warrior on turn 1. And we can also train a warrior on turn 2. This is optional. And then on turn 3, then we go for a tier 1 tech like organization or hunting, and then we upgrade that next city. Then on turn 4, we can decide to train up to 2 warriors, depending on the situation. Now, let's look at another scenario where you don't have much water, but you also don't find your second city right away. This is definitely the worst case scenario for Kickoo, but it's still manageable. If you train a warrior on turn 2, then by turn 4, you can buy a tier 1 technology, and optionally train a warrior on turn 4 as well. Alright, now for Hoodrick, Hoodrick is a very simple tribe in terms of openings. The main one that you always want to know is if you find your village right away, you can go ahead and get hunting on turn 3 to level up your capital, and then on turn 4, you can choose to either train 2 warriors, warrior and an archer, or you can decide to level up your second city, which is usually the go-to option. And now, if you miss your second city, then you can go with a different opening that also happens to work if you don't miss your second city. It's just a very nice opening in general. Basically, instead of buying hunting on turn 3, you're going to buy forestry on turn 4, and optionally chop some forests to level up your second city or your capital, which is usually recommended. Now for Luxidoor, is a very versatile tribe, as you'll see. The most popular opening, though, is the triple warrior opening, where you get a warrior on turn 0 and turn 1. And then from there, get whatever tech you need to upgrade your second city. And on turn 4, you can optionally choose to train up to 2 warriors if you want to. And now for another opening, we'll see what happens if you get a lighthouse spawn. So when you get a lighthouse spawn, just like with turn 0 tribes, you only want to use your third warrior to find that lighthouse. But with Luxidoor, it's pretty much always relevant when you're near that lighthouse because you only get 2 guaranteed resources on your capital. So the lighthouse means you're guaranteed a level 3 capital. So you're pretty much always going for it with your third warrior. and you're leveling up your capital on either turn 3 or turn 4, depending on how close the lighthouse is. And then from there, you can train more warriors, or you can save up for some other technology. And then now we'll see what happens if you don't find your village right away, which, because of how flexible Luxidoor is, they can work with this surprisingly well. So here we miss our second city, but because we still have a good economy on our capital, we can save up for forestry and buy that turn 4 to get us a nice head start in technology and economy. Now for my personal favorite opening, where you don't train a warrior on turn 0, and instead you train a rider on turn 1. This is a very aggressive opening. I would recommend only playing it on small maps, or if you just expect to meet an opponent very early. You usually want to buy attack turn 3 before capturing, so then you can level up your second city on turn 4, and then from there, you usually want to get an explorer, and also train plenty of riders at this point. And now, see a variation of that opening where you missed your second city. Again, you train that rider on turn 1, and this time, you'll also want to train a rider on turn 2. You don't necessarily have to, but it's very nice to get that extra aggression and exploration. But optionally, you can save up to level up your next city by turn 4, but with this sort of opening, it's nice to keep things aggressive. Now for Vengir, we're going to start with the classic 2-sword opening. Usually with this, you want to keep your swords bunched together until you find a village or another player, and then from there, act accordingly. Your first tech will pretty much always be hunting, because your capital will always have animals, but your second city will rarely have anything. And on turn 4, you can level up your capital, and from there you'll have 5-star per turn, which is enough to continue spamming swords every turn. And now we'll look at some options if you're not on a really small or crowded map. You can go ahead and train a warrior instead of a sword, and then from there, on turn 3, you'll get hunting, because again, that levels up your capital, and then you'll have enough economy to spam swords if there's someone close, and if not, then you can try to save for forestry or some other tech to help your eco. And now we'll look at my personal favorite opening. This opening works both if you find and don't find your second city, so it's a very flexible opening, and you'll find it works in quite a lot of circumstances. Basically, your idea is to not get hunting on turn 3, but instead to get forestry on turn 4. You can kind of think about it like the turn for forestry for Hoodrick, but with Vengir. You'll have to chop a lot of your force, but it'll really help you with that early game economy, and you've got plenty of late game resources anyway, so losing the force is no big deal. And that's all for part 2. Have a good one.